lot of false things. You conjure these spirits, you become one of their legions when you die. That's something I've heard somebody tell me that
Wow.
they learned. And I'm like, how did you learn that? And they were like, well, someone on the internet told me. And it's like, look, man, I talk on the internet, and if you believe half the shit I say, you're a dumb fuck. But
It's the Up at Night with John podcast, episode 6. And I have with me a special guest, Joshua Gadbois, better known as Rufus Opus. His writing pseudonym, he is an occult author, an occult philosopher, and a blogger. I want you to kick your feet up, get your favorite drink, get a pillow behind your head, and relax. Because tonight's going to be amazing. You just wait.
All right. So, bonsoir, everyone. It is Up at Night with John, and I have a very non-musical guest with me today. And it couldn't be any better than that. Is your last name Gadbois or is it Gadbois?
It's Gadbois.
Gadbois.
You had it right the first time.
Good. It's weird, especially now you're in the Midwest area, right?
Yeah.
See, in the South, there's a lot of French names, but they're pronounced phonetically.
Right.
So
and like here too, my parents pronounce the last name Gadbois and Gadboy. They'll drop the S sometimes, but I go with the French pronunciation because growing up, I was called Joshua Bad Boys. I was called Joshua Gay Boy. Many of those different things, but as soon as I started calling myself Gadbois, that all just kind of vanished. So,
I see.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely about my personal preference.
Yeah, Gadbois has more of an air of, authority to it anyways.
Sometime I'll have to tell you what it actually means.
So you go under the moniker Rufus Opus, and
yes.
you write to the masses, I guess you could say. On I think you have a couple of blogs, don't you? You have a more famous one, the Head for the Red one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then you have another one.
I have another one that I focused on OTO-related matters, mostly where I bitched about the things I didn't like about it. And
okay.
Yeah, and I do most of my writing these days on Facebook just because it's easier and I like it. I like the instant response. I like the likes. I like the loves and the smiley faces and stuff. I'm pretty vain.
Coming up, when I came up in the world of the occult, I guess you could say, was in the 90s, and it was the time of like for me, what influenced me the most was like the New Falcon and Falcon Press, and like the
oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, the Dr. Christopher Hyatt, all that. That whole vein was what drew me in, and it was all Goetia related somehow. It always came back to it.
Yeah, are you in the OTO or?
No, I am not in the OTO. I had aspirations as a younger person to do something in the Golden Dawn, and then I got wrapped up in Santeria, and then my path became something completely different. And
yeah, well, I don't practice Santeria. I do have a crystal ball, but
it was inevitable. It was inevitable.
It was.
But yeah, so when, at least for me, when it's weird to see Facebook and social media and stuff right now with in relations to the occult, because I grew up at a time when it was like from these crazy publishers that you had to like track down to go get these one book, and then you cherished everything that was in that book, and now everything's just like boom, it's all there. It's
right. It takes a lot less time. I really like the internet. It kind of made me who I am in the occult world and gave me a voice. And anybody can write up a blog. Anybody can do whatever they want with it. And the fact that I gained a following and ended up getting to be a published author, I mean, none of that would have happened without the internet. Nobody would have ever heard of me,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
But what was it?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, what was your favorite New Falcon book?
I have to say, I was always partial to the classic Energized Hypnosis, Undoing Yourself.
Yeah,
I
that was a
did
good
like
one.
I like Dogma Days. I liked the Black Book series. I loved Christopher Hyatt's sense of drama. I loved it. It was so edgelord.
Yeah, he was pretty edgy.
he was very edgy, and it was a time when you could still be that way and not cringe people to death.
He's
So
dead now, isn't he?
yeah, he died in I think 2008, and
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was a
And
sad
shame.
loss.
I
So,
mean,
go ahead.
but the way he did so many drugs, I mean,
It's true. It's very true. I think it was the cigarettes that got him in the end, though. I think is what
yeah,
happened.
it was like the least surprising death in the occult world ever since
Right.
Aleister Crowley.
It's true. Absolutely true. But do you feel like there's not enough people like that, or do you feel like now in this day and age they are too bad of an influence or example now?
Oh, I don't know. I think, a lot of my friends in the occult community, like Jason Miller, live some very straight edge lives, like he's raising his kids and doesn't drink and doesn't smoke pot, even when he's invited to. He's just, very, very clean living kind of guy. And then I got friends over in London that are, smoking a lot of weed and drinking a lot of beer and having a good time with their lives and still doing the same level of work with their lives. So I don't know if it really matters. I think that personal choice, one of the things that drew me to Thelema was the whole "do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law" thing.
Right.
There's a reason for that, and people get to choose what they want to do, and you got to find the things that make it possible for you to do your job as a magician.
Now, let's get into how you got into the Gotia, and for those who are not as I guess educated onto these occult matters, the Gotia is in reference to a book that is sometimes called a grimoire, this and that. It's a book from a greater series called the Lemegaton. How is that pronounced?
I go with Lemegaton.
Lemegaton.
It
There you
doesn't
go.
mean I'm right. I was born in Illinois, so I do my best.
But yeah, it's in reference to essentially these two books in Western occultism, I guess you could say, or ceremonial magic or whatever, is the Greater Keys and the Lesser Keys. And the Lesser Keys is what is known as the Gotia, and of course the one that's most dubious in authorship, I guess you could say, or at least in my opinion, fascinating because it's been touched so many times, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and it's Crowley made it really popular,
Mhm.
right? I mean, his opening, he had, I think it was Mathers translate it or something, or I can't remember if it was Mathers or Waite, but like the opening page of the published book was a cursing of the person that he had translate it for him,
Right.
So, but then, there were, because he published it by itself, like very few people know that there are, in the Lemegaton, there's the Goetia, the Thurgia Goetia, which is celestial and terrestrial spirits, and there's the Ars Polina and the Ars Notaria. It's a compendium of books that, when you put them all together, one of them is about how to pray to these spirits that we live with and breathe with, and one of them is about figuring out which of these spirits is your personal spirit, and then one of them's about these spirits that just pay attention to what's going on right now all the time, and then there's the Goetia that when you dive into it, these spirits aren't like it sounds like, oh, I'm gonna conjure demons and kill people and get rich and get laid, and there are demons for that for sure, but most of them are like, let me teach you about geology. Now I'm going to show you what this rock means. And now I'll show you a little bit about rhetoric and logic. And most of them give you good familiars. It's about, it was basically, when it was written, it was during the medieval times when the middle class was just starting to emerge. And if you look at what liberal arts are, the liberal arts colleges were liberal because they were free to citizens, and most of the people in the time that the grimoires were being written were they were poor. They were just they were serfs. They didn't count as citizens. They didn't get to vote. They didn't have a voice. So the whole the like you can look at the Goetia as a liberal arts college for people who couldn't go to liberal arts colleges. It would teach you the tools that you need to join the middle class. It would help you make sure your ships got across the sea that you'd invested in. It would help you protect your city from attacks. It would help you get rid of diseases. It would help you do all these wonderful things that they actually had to deal with on a daily basis. It was like a manual of treatment for living on planet Earth in that time period. And it's not that different today.
I've always thought that there was a lot of parallels between Renaissance, medieval / Renaissance, Hermeticism, occultism, and psychology. I mean, there's so much in parallel. A lot of them were somewhat of a therapist in some ways. So I always thought the same thing, and I thought they were a lot of times using the same language, just different symbolism.
When you delve into like the tabula rosa, is that what it is? The Rosicrucian thing. Mm-hmm. The things that the Philosopher's Stone is supposed to treat are basically depression, anxiety, and the general concerns about your life. It's not about getting rich and getting laid and getting happy. It's about treating yourself so that you can treat others and help them get past their sadness about being alive, And
this has been your particular angle of work here with the occult, has been this neighborhood, this more therapeutic kind of great work, higher,
I guess. I kind of think I'm an asshole, though. I like to think I'm an asshole. I try to be an asshole, but it's pretty selfish. I don't want to live on a planet full of dickheads,
right?
And we do. We live on a planet full of dickheads. And if I can get more people to do magic and go through the transformations that happen as they do magic, it makes it a better place for the rest of us,
Right. Do you think that the Goetia is a valid method of transformation for the general public?
Oh, that's a dangerous one.
Right. Well, it's why I asked.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a dangerous question because yes, I do. But because when you play music, right?
Yes.
Your audience understands music, right?
Yes.
So, like, if you go into a guitar store and if all the guitars are tuned properly and you strum a G string, every G string is going to vibrate in the entire store, right? Resonance.
Yeah.
In the same way, when you, a spirit embodied in the flesh, conjure a spirit that's not embodied in the flesh, you're going to end up vibrating at their level. So like when I started working with Bune in the Goetia first, and he was awesome. I loved him to pieces. He looked like a mugwump.
He's the typical wealth demon.
Yeah, right? He brings riches to a man, right? But he also makes a man eloquent, and he also makes flames to appear on the sepulchres. right? So those are his three main traits in the Goetia. And it's like, what the fuck is this? Why do I need flames on a sepulcher? And he explained it to me, and I found all this interesting stuff from history about why people would need to know where a grave was so that they could perform commerce. You know, like the Jewish people couldn't walk across a dead body without being unclean, so they couldn't go to other towns when the markers fell down and decayed.
Well, also, who would want a boring sepulcher when you could have badass flames on yours? I
Right.
mean, absolutely. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want.
Yeah, but I learned a lot about necromancy from him too. You
Mhm.
know, the more I worked with him, the more into ancestor work I got, the more into talking to the dead, and the more people who had just had their family members die would come to me for help and services. You know, and it was really interesting how just by conjuring him and honoring him on my altar, there would be all these changes that were related to that. And that's when I did most of my writing. Like, I wrote my entire book under his auspices. He made me a more eloquent person. He made me able to speak these kind of complicated ideas into a very simple language. And it was really useful for me because I was a tech writer at the time.
Right.
You know, and if you're trying to write up how software works, being able to explain it to someone who may or may not have ever used Microsoft Excel is a very useful trait to have.
So,
So it brought me money.
right. So in some ways, it was like a mystery cult that you had kind of gotten yourself initiated into, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't. I never thought of it that way. But yeah, I mean, everybody who works with these spirits is kind of part of that cult, right? You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
that goes
think
back.
it's typical to hear from people who actually have tried out the Gotia and have had any success with it to find some resonance with one in particular and then go outside of its wheelhouse, it's whatever its declared wheelhouse somewhat. Now, whether that is to good effect or ill effect, I've heard both, to be quite honest. But
Hmm.
me growing up, my particular one was with Seer,
Oh, right.
and that was a big strange attraction for me when I was coming up in that world for a while. And so I understand.
What was it about him that really drew you to him?
Well, at the time, let's see. At the time, I wasn't drawn to him per se. I was doing divination to figure out which spirit I should work with, I guess you could say. I was really fascinated with the Gotia. My personal story, it's not a very long one, I promise, but my personal story was I went to I was about 14 years old, I think, and I made my aunt take me to this occult bookstore in Norfolk, Virginia. And it was one of those old ones. Like it's like in a movie or something. You know, it was like an old mainstay in Norfolk, Virginia for a while. And I went there to get the Greater Keys of Solomon. And after reading the Christopher Hyatt stuff, it was all, you know, his whole thing is like you go right for the grimoires and you do them the way you're supposed to be done, and that's it. No bullshit about it, and that's it. Yeah. So I was on a mission. You know, I was going to go get the Greater Keys, and I was going to do this shit the way it's supposed to be done. And then there was this woman who worked there, and she pushed the Gotia on me, and she even cut the price in half and gave it to me. And it was the copy of the Aleister Crowley copy with the all that. I think it has a preface from someone from the OTO in it, I think, too, or something like that.
Yeah, probably Wasserman.
And
He published all that shit.
yeah, I went through it that way. So I already didn't understand it, and then, you know, read it over and over again, trying to figure out what it even meant, because it made no. If you've never had any kind of education about that, that book makes no freaking sense. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so eventually things clicked, and I was able to connect this dot and this dot, talk to this person and this and that, and work with it. And that was how I did it. I forgot what complicated setup I had, but I was working with the references out of 777 and trying to do this Kabbalistic divinatory thing back in those days. And so it all took me to that. It took me to Seer, and then I started working with that being, whatever, and that's and things just moved from there. It was the one that I felt like I actually had a real contact with. First of all, it was the one I actually felt like I could ever really evoke without any hiccups and any problems.
So what were his traits, though? What was Seer supposed to do?
Let's see. Seer was to go and fetch things anywhere, and what was it? The guards. I think guards against theft. It's been so long.
Yeah, and travel like anywhere.
Yeah,
like
travel anywhere. Horse.
Yeah, and like overnight. Yeah. I know a few people who've worked with Seer. So, Moloch?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Moloch and I had a conversation, and we got to talking about it, and one of the things we figured out was that when you've worked long enough with any of these spirits, they're all capable of doing the same things, and if they don't do it, then they just call their brother or their sister to come over and take care of it for you. But they become either your representative or your intermediary, or however you want to put it.
Right.
And I thought that was fascinating. I don't think I put that in my book, but I think that's really interesting that all these guys, they talk to each other.
Yeah, I think so. You're in the camp that these are real beings, and in another I guess a dimension, or whatever like that. I mean, to me, I say that way because I've always been in constant mystery to the existence of things in reality. When I was growing up, I read that article that it was an article or something like that by Aleister Crowley about the them being perhaps parts of your mind, and staring at the sigils were somehow unlocking parts of your. And I didn't completely put all the stock into what he was saying, but it was enough to make me doubt whether things were real or not. So,
yeah. That's a healthy skepticism. I was talking to someone today who on Facebook who recently became it's hard to explain. I don't want to say enamored of me, but like he's pinging me every day about stuff, asking me about, should I have done the sigils in this time and that hour, and should I do this and that and the other, and these are my experiences, is this real?
Oh yeah, I know the type.
Yeah. And I don't mind it at all. He's super cool, and I love him a lot, but the thing I had to tell him was, even if this is all in our head and we're just imagining it, it's fun.
Right.
It's what makes us happy, and that's what makes us magicians. When you're a magician, you aren't going to be happy unless you're doing magic, and you have to do it.
Yeah, I think that's where I had to come down to it as well, because it was it didn't really matter, did it? You were still going through the motions. You're still doing all the things, and
every time you work with these spirits, especially in the Goetia, you get what you ask for. Strangely and naturally, and completely naturally, using completely natural forces, you find yourself getting everything that you've asked for. And maybe it's a coincidence, and maybe you're making it up, and maybe you're programming your brain to look for these things, and maybe blah, 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 whatever. But fucking you do the magic and you fucking get the results. Right. So
And here's the thing that's kind of interesting when thinking about it that way as well, that considering what source it comes from, per se, like not per se, but like a system, maybe like from the Greater Keys, maybe from the Gotia, maybe from another grimoire altogether, like the what's that, the Arbitel of Magic or something like that. They do have a particular signature from the source they come from. It's not all generic. You know what I mean? You don't go through the same motions and then this happens just like it happens over here.
Yeah.
It's very different. And sometimes it comes with bullshit.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes it comes with tons of bullshit.
So do I. So I ain't gonna hold it against them.
I've always kind of felt that they were, by nature, if they were something real, something mischievous in some way. Not every being or whatnot, but I mean, for the most part, especially for me with the Gotia, there's always been an air of dangerousness about them.
Well, they have a really bad reputation. You know, a lot of people have said a lot of false things about them. Like, if you conjure these spirits, you become one of their legions when you die. That's something I've heard somebody tell me that they learned. And I'm like, how did you learn that? And they were like, well, someone on the internet told me. And it's like, look, man, I talk on the internet, and if you believe half the shit I say, you're a dumb fuck. But no, I mean, I don't think they're any more mischievous than anybody else. I think that, I mean, how old are you?
I'm 37.
37. All right. I'm 45, much, much older than you. And the older I get, the more cranky I get, you know, and the more I'm more likely to say, wake the fuck up earlier, you people, instead of, hey, everybody, I hope that you're doing well and setting your alarms and keeping to your schedule, you know,
right?
Because I'm older. And these guys have been around for a while, you know,
right?
And they've been stuck doing the same fucking job since the beginning of time, and they can't quit. They got the same boss, and nobody ever talks to them. And when the people do, they're usually idiots in the graveyard, you know? And it's like,
or they want something, right?
That's right, exactly. And it's like the only time you call me is when you want something, right? And they don't, most magicians do not use the Goetia the way it's intended. I didn't, you know, first time I did it, I was like, you motherfucker, you did not make me win the goddamn lottery, so I am going to take your seal, I'm going to put it in the oven at 200 degrees, and I'm going to leave it there to bake your ass, you know?
It should be explained to anyone who doesn't know that reference is like a lot of these grimoires have these pre-written scripts in them of when you talk to these beings, you're supposed to have this kind of like badass air about you, and you have to be all like, you got to do what I say or I'm going to make you, you know, fucking burn in hell. And
yeah. And it's total bullshit, you know? I mean, these guys want to work with us as much as we want to work with them, but I mean, imagine talking to someone who's been around for, you know, 4.5 billion years. They're going to have kind of a little bit of cynicism to them. And I don't think it's mischief. I think they just think it's funny watching us be all young and stupid. In the same way that parents feel that about their kids, you know, they watch your kid fall down and you're like, you know, I mean, like, oh, look, they ran into the wall again. But I don't think it's anything more evil or dastardly than that. I think they're pretty cool. I mean, they want to work with us. They're bored, you know. They like being told what to do. They're like mischievous subs.
From a purely anecdotal point of view, I do appreciate when I did work in the Gotia deeply. I appreciated how worldly the results were, and usually there wasn't a lesson or some deep thing to go through in
Yeah, I
order
totally
for
hear
you.
that.
Yeah, when you go through the more lofty angelic ones, things seem to happen that way, where it's like you've got to go and figure something out or learn
Yeah,
something,
they
and
take something away from you to teach you a lesson.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
it's it's interesting. But yeah, that's my anecdote about the Gotia, is that I appreciate that baseline. Oh, you want $40? Well, here's $40. That's it. That's
That's it. We're done.
yeah.
Yeah. But the
Whereas
more you work with them, though, they do grind it out of you. You know, like I was saying about the eloquence part of Bune or Bune or however you say his name. Um, and he won't tell you. He won't tell you it's Bune. No, it's Bune. He's a bit of a dick sometimes. Um, but yeah, it does grind it into you. Like just hanging out with them, it changes you and your nature and turns you into someone like when you were working with Sear. I don't know if you still do, but did you find yourself adopting his traits?
dangerously, I
Yeah.
and it was quiet. It was gradual.
Right, but why was it dangerous?
Because to me at least, like when you look at, say, more like West African beliefs, or like Santeria or voodoo, or blah blah blah, candomblé, all that stuff, there's this kind of like instruction manual amount of knowledge for possession and the idea of possession, and so there's a lot known about it. And when you come into like things like Gotia, there isn't a lot known, or at least explained, known. There isn't a system like there is in, say, West African traditions like that. So to me, it was just like, I didn't ask for that, so I didn't particularly want that, and that freaked me out a little bit when it came to that. I did the same thing though with the solar ritual from the Greater Keys, and it worked very similar like that too, where I started to take on these energies, powers, what you want to call it, that were very solar, and they were very hard to deal with, and it kept tipping over into arrogance, and and it kept doing it. I had no control over it. It was
Yeah.
totally a
You find yourself stealing your dad's car and driving it across the sky and catching on fire.
right.
Whoops. Sorry, Dad. Helios like a motherfucker. No, I understand. I think my solar work was like probably the best work for me because I'm a Taurus, and you know I will just do the earth stuff all the time. I will eat and I will sleep and I will wake up and I will eat and then I'll go take a nap. You know.
So what is your let's get all 1970s for a minute. What's your rising sign and your moon?
Well, my rising sign is I think it's Sagittarius. I don't remember what my moon is. I think it's also Sagittarius or probably Gemini. I don't know. It's hard to remember. I do know that my Mercury is in Gemini, and I can always see both sides of things. But,
My Mercury's in Gemini.
yeah, so it's easy, isn't it?
It is.
You know, you're like, you're right, but you're also wrong.
It's, you know what? It's true. It's hard to convey that to people too. Like, it really is. It's
You should write books. I wrote a book on angel magic, and then I wrote a book on demon magic.
Well, let's get into the angel part of things. Your Seven Spheres book, which I arguably is probably your most popular, most well known.
Well, it's the oldest one. It was the first one I had published. It's been out for like years. So yes, most people know about it if they know about me at all.
Right. That was a magnum opus on your part, though. That was was there an influence for the writing of that book?
It was fun. I mean, yeah. So at the same time I was writing that, I did the red work series of courses, and I'm trying to turn that into a book, but most of the text that I have is quotes from Agrippa. Yeah, so I can't just like publish Agrippa. It's
Right.
not a class.
You could totally just rip him off and call it the 2 books of occult philosophy, and just
the half a book of occult philosophy. The important bits. But yeah, I mean that the Seven Spheres book was a condensed version of um, the Gates rites that I had created at the time, as just a means to open the gates to each of the 7 planetary spheres, to absorb the energies and to be cleansed within each of them. And I'm going to sound a little arrogant here for just a second. Going through that process was the accomplishment of the great work for me. And I'd done a lot of work studying and researching alchemy and uh, the black, white, and green phases of the work, and the red phase, and the actual creation of the Philosopher's Stone, and how it was an esoteric thing. I can't remember who ran the site, but it was alchemylab.com. I don't know if you remember it.
I remember that.
It was pretty cool. I think it's still out there, but it condensed all this alchemical documentation and images and stuff, and it was really great. And they had one section called the esoteric part, the esoteric alchemy, and I read a lot from there, and it influenced me a great deal about understanding the transformation of the self through magic, and how what we do in our magical rites are an interpretation of the same process. So when I got, and also BJ Swain, I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No, I'm not.
Oh, he wrote a book called Living Spirits, and anyway, he's a really good friend of mine, and we talked for years and years about this stuff. And he taught me about Merkava, the process of traveling up through the tree of life by creating a chariot of light, and the transformations that happen as you go through each of the spheres. And it was while I was reading all this alchemy stuff. So when I found Trithemius, because I am the laziest motherfucker you're ever going to meet in your life. When I found Trithemius, I was like, hey, 7 spheres. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, there's no point in going through all this shit if it's going to take you fucking 40 years. So, I mean, over the space of about 6 weeks, I went through each of the 7 spheres. I conjured the archangel. I asked them to open the gate to the sphere of the moon, and the sphere of which comes next, Mercury, and then Venus, and then the sun, and then Mars, and then Jupiter, and then Saturn. And my whole life changed, like
Right.
I changed, like my heart changed, the way I look at people changed, everything changed. And I understood that whole Rosicrucian thing about heal people and do that for free,
Right.
but nobody fucking listens if you don't charge them money. So
Yeah, it's sort of true, but you created a very profound initiatory experience for people to be able to just jack into if they wanted to do the actual process. And I that's really, really great. There's not enough in occultism. There's not enough on a twofold thing. There's not enough of a healthy skepticism mixed with kind of progressive view of deeper themes in occultism, like, you know, morality and spiritual things and things like that, like spiritual matters, higher spiritual matters. And I think it's interesting. I think it's not done quite enough. You know, either have these two extremes. You have people who are preaching, or you have like shitlords, and there's never this, you know what I mean? Yeah, these
Yeah.
become a living god.
Right.
You
Okay,
know?
shit lord. There's also Aaron Leach.
You know, this is interesting. I knew about him since like the early or the late 90s. I remember reading one of his articles in like, I don't know, like 99, 98,
Yeah,
something
on
like
like
that.
Geosphere or Geo
Yes,
whatever.
back in the day, back in the day.
Oh, he's still there. He
Is he
has
still-
not even fucking upgraded his goddamn website. He's like still at
Really?
GeoCities.
It's the same one.
It's the
from,
same one, yeah.
Oh my god!
And he's still posting new like blog posts there, and then he links to them, and I'm like, "Fuck you with your goddamn star background."
He was the first guy that I ever saw take like Abermelon stuff so seriously and actually treat it like a
It was
religious
real?
experience. Yeah. The first time it was like with my vision, the first time I ever saw that, it was really crazy to see it at first. And so it's crazy that you know him, because like that was like one of the first internet.
He and I hate each other in a way that is, I don't know. It's pretty well known. We don't get along. We're gonna start a podcast together because of course. We're gonna call it Waldorf and Statler.
Yeah, I think it's I think both of you are like two ends of the spectrum, right? I mean, in some ways.
I think he and I are sort of on the same. I don't know. I would disagree with you on that one. I think he and I are on the same end of the spectrum. We both are into the perfection of the self. We're both into helping other people get to that. We're both into a lot of similar things. But you mentioned David Griffin earlier, and I will confess that is the first time I've said his name for reasons. But yeah, the reason that Aaron and Leach and I are complete enemies about everything is because whenever we get pissed off at David Griffin, we agree to have a flame war with one another rather than mention him.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's that bad. It's like he enrages us so much that it's just like, fuck you, Aaron Leach.
Is this no? Are you really at odds with this guy? This
It's a friend. We're very good friends.
I'm talking about the Griffin guy.
Oh, him? Oh,
yeah.
He's a complete douchebag.
So like that's real. That's not like kayfabe.
Oh, I cannot stand him.
Okay.
I don't talk about him because every time I talk about him, he gets more publicity.
I feel. Okay.
And there's absolutely no reason for anybody on this planet to go to him to learn a goddamn thing about a goddamn thing. His book was good. The one book that you said earlier.
Which book did I say?
I don't remember. It was.
I don't remember mentioning him. I don't even know what he wrote.
You said you read his book on.
Did I?
That's where you learned. Oh my God, am I thinking of someone else?
I was talking about Christopher Hyatt.
Yeah, but you also talked about reading David Griffin stuff and learning about. No, I am completely crossing you over with somebody else. All right, cool.
Yeah,
But anyway, yeah, I could have sworn you said something about reading David Griffin's book on high magic and stuff, and I've heard from a lot of people that they got a lot out of that book, and that's great for them. But it's all ceremonial magic, and it's all Golden Dawn stuff. It's all post 1899, and it's all this weird blend of this psychological approach to magic.
Oh my God. He for $450 for his book?
Yeah,
That's insanity. That's too much. That's crazy.
He's a bit of a douche, but in honesty, he's not making any money.
Ah.
His big claim to fame is that he found gold using magic. Basically, he's a trust fund baby, and nobody wants to call him out on it, but in real life, he's just a fucking trust fund baby, and he inherited a bunch of money, and he bought some gold, and then he sold it when it was worth more. He's just a douche.
So that is
I hate him.
I feel no, I totally understand. I totally understand. There's been plenty of people that have made me feel the same way. Trust me.
Yeah, this is one of the few for me. I honestly hate like maybe 3 people, 4, 5. Not many though, you know. I mean, I really love humans. I think that we're pretty good at this. Mostly. We do our best.
Yeah, I like to think so. I do. I'd like to think
but he
so.
doesn't. He doesn't at all.
There's always people like that challenges your belief.
He oh my God. No, I'm not going to go there. I won't talk about how his son died. And
oh God.
Yeah, it was awful. And I wanted to feel sorry for him so bad. And then he was like so douchey about it. And I was like, your son is in a better place.
Oh, wow.
It's that bad.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, enough gossip about the like, I'm not glad his son died, but I feel good for his son.
That's some hatred.
It was, yeah. Believe me, there are reasons. There are many reasons. I am not a dickhead. I mean, I am, but I'm not.
Everybody sounds like a dickhead when they hate someone. It just it's
sure.
unavoidable. You know what I mean? Because no one knows the details. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing. No one knows what drove you to.
Well, I mean, it would take us like another 4 hours to actually go over all the details that led up to that. But trust me, he's a douche.
I mean,
sorry to derail the conversation.
he must be a douche. I mean, he has to be. If that's how you feel.
I think so. I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, why would I feel that way otherwise? I accomplish the great work. I love people. I try to heal the world. I try to make more magicians. And here, I hate this one guy. Anyway.
Now, do you hold the kind of Crowleyan notion of eras and aeons and whatnot? Yeah.
I mean, how do you? Maybe I would go with maybe. You know, that healthy skepticism we were talking about earlier.
Right.
I try to keep that healthy skepticism. I mean, it's obviously scientifically unprovable and mostly false,
right?
Like most of what Crowley wrote. But, I mean, he tried. He did his best with his 19th century bullshit mind's frame. You know, his paradigms were all fucked. But, you know, no, I mean, yeah, I do think that there is a spiritual progression of humanity. Maybe it's more that I hope there is, but yeah, I think that there is something to that there are stages of our development. It's like the epochs of the evolution of species and stuff. You know, I think that that's valid. I think that we're all human though, and we always have been. And if you look back at like, the spirituality of the Tibetans 2,000 years ago, or the Native Americans, or uh, people who are still shooting arrows at planes in South America. If you get into the anthropology of stuff, basically we all do the same things, and it's the same things as like in the Goetia, right?
Right.
It's you find a spirit, an invisible friend who helps you do the things you want, and that's your basic spirituality.
Mhm.
And when you move to a city and you have commerce and you interact with a dense population of fellow humans, um, you get distanced from it. You're not in touch with the spirits of your local house, your trees, your garden. You forget that these things are alive and conscious and aware, and you forget that you're part of a system, and you plug yourself into this plastic system that's just not nearly as good.
Right.
So and then you end up going to church to find God because you lost God. Where's God? Oh, we'll go to that building and see if he's there.
So now you are a theistic occultist. Is that a fair
I
assessment?
think these days I'm more animist. I
Okay.
think everything has a spirit and we all interact with it. I pray to my printer. Please fucking work.
If it works, it works, right? I mean,
Well, I always tell it it's doing a good job when it prints the paper. I mean, it needs to hear it too.
right.
A lot of
Well,
that was formed from the Japanese. God, what's it called?
are you talking about like the Shinto, the kami
Yeah,
idea of
yeah,
kami? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That idea that everything has a spirit. I encourage all of my objects to continue to work, especially my cell phone.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to have like these action figures that I would like put in front of my door to like protect me at night.
Yeah,
And I did
right,
that just instinctively, just
right.
put it there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because as a kid we knew, you know.
right.
So
Well, then you grow up and
yeah,
you need
and you
Jesus.
learn you need Jesus. How's that Jesus working for you? I got corona.
So
Oh, Jesus.
speaking of which, how has that been affecting you? I mean, you're a writer, so I mean, obviously you don't go out to work.
Oh, wouldn't that be great? No, I'm a SharePoint developer at Wells Fargo Bank.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, you can't pay your bills being a writer. I'm one of the most wealthiest. Like I have made more money than all of my writer friends, and I have several occult author friends, and I think I've made like 40 grand off of Seven Spheres.
That's not bad. That's not bad
That's not
for
bad,
this
no.
this day and
But
age. That's not bad.
over 6 years, I mean,
Still,
come
that's
on now. Let's be honest here. I mean, that's not a lot of money. Writers are fucking broke.
it's the same situation with musicians.
Oh yeah, yeah. You got to have a day job.
I mean, like the thing is that when you start getting involved with other people and you start, knowing the scuttlebug in your community, whatever it is, that's the thing that really happens. It freaks you out the most is when you learn how much money is actually going around,
Yeah,
and
it's
you're
so
like,
small.
oh God, yeah,
Oh my God, what
yeah.
the fuck?
I mean, it really is crazy when you think about. I remember I started a little label at one point, just a little net label, and I was releasing albums on Bandcamp, and I mean, it was like a job. I had all these people. I was trying to make physical copies of the music and market it and all this other stuff. And at the end of the day, I started to become like the number one seller for a while. Like I had 2 best-selling albums out, And I started to see how much money I was making, which wasn't a lot. And then I was number one.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I work with Nephilim Press because it is the only publishing company that it's run by a guy named Frank Red, and he is a wonderful dude. And there's no contracts, there's no signatures. He just splits the money with you. After the publishing costs are paid, he just splits all the profits with you. No
Nice.
other publisher on the planet does that.
Right.
You know, he if anybody wants to be an occult author, they should go through Nephilim Publishing, because he's just, you know, he's just an honest, good dude. You know, all he wants to do is spread the words and make some money. You know,
Nice. I mean,
so
that really is, in this day and age, is really good. I mean,
nobody
it's
makes 50% profit on
right.
royalties. Nobody. Everybody gets like 25 cents a book.
Right.
By the time Donald Michael Craig died, his 11 Lessons in High Magic.
Right.
Did you have that one?
Modern Magic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Modern
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah. Yeah. I
11
remember that
Lessons in
one.
High Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was making like 23 cents per copy from
That book
Llewellyn.
was like this big.
I know.
Too. It was like
and it was like years worth of his work. And he had been selling it for like 30, 40 years. I don't know how long. I mean, it's still being published.
Right.
His estate gets the profits these days, all 23 cents per book. You know, I mean,
so
what the fuck? I get $25 for every book that gets sold from Nephilim Press.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
Bad.
That's not bad.
You know, I'm getting 100 times as much as Donald Michael Craig. And who the fuck am I? You know, how many people have I helped? I really hope someday I can help that many people.
I knew this Wiccan priestess back in the day in Greenville, Tennessee, and she had a little herb shop. It was called the Violet Moon. And
a bunch of dead frogs outside her house every night.
It was, you know what? East
Not
Tennessee,
lying.
Like, out there in the country part of East Tennessee, they're like, it is surprisingly tolerant there, and it's really weird. Like it's like everything you think would happen doesn't happen, and you got to go out to like Appalachia, like out in the sticks though. Like those people are so like alarming or disarmingly tolerant of people. It's really weird. So like she had a she had a shop there, and like they never messed with her. Like they never did anything to her. It was really weird. And she was out there. But anyway, she was telling me the scuttlebug on what was his name? Scott Cunningham. Like,
first occult book I ever bought.
Is it really
it was the Celtic Magic one?
Yeah. She said that he didn't see like barely anything when he was alive, like for the books, and he was like #1 bestseller. Boom, boom, boom. That was the final word, you know, for the Wiccan boom of the 80s and 90s. You know.
Oh hell yeah, man.
Yeah, he didn't see any of it. That sucks.
Yeah. No, the money piece of this is really weird. I think Jason Miller and I sort of changed the occult approach to things, and we started offering ebooks and lessons and classes.
Right.
And we did it at the same time, but kind of in parallel. It's not like we talked to each other about it or anything, but we created a whole new business model for the occult that isn't based on your book sales. It's you write your books, you publish your books, people buy your books, they read about you, they think you're interesting, they go online and they find your classes, and then they enroll, and then you get them into the enrollment process, right?
Right.
And I thought it was a great model. I was selling classes for $125 a piece, you know, and I would get 25 people to sign up. Yeah. it's not bad money, you know, as a side income. And all I had to do was every Saturday sit down in front of a computer and do like a podcast like this, right?
Wow.
That was, yeah, and send them an ebook, which was, you know, a 3 or 4 page document that I turned into a PDF. It, and if you look on the internet, it's out there. everybody published it because they're assholes. But
Yeah, welcome to the
that's not,
internet.
yeah.
It's so
But that was expected, you know, and
right.
it was the chance to actually talk to us, I think, that really sold the classes. And um, after a while, I got to feeling uh, like it wasn't worth it, because instead of doing the work and progressing and becoming actual magicians, what people would do is they would sign up for the class, and then, you know, I wouldn't hear from them. So every class had homework,
Right.
you know, and I never got a report back from like half of them. So it was like, what the fuck, man? And it's not like I can fail them. You know, they already paid me the money. So they keep getting the classes. But then at the end of the course, you know, how many people became real magicians? Like half, maybe quarter. It wasn't really turning them or changing them into anything better. And um, I love Jason Miller, and I think he offers some of the best material on the planet. But his students are almost like uh, junkies, you know?
Right.
They just want to keep learning something new and not doing anything. They aren't becoming their own magicians in the way that I did when I had to fucking go out to esotericarchives.com and Wikipedia and research the history of the first through the third centuries of Greek magical papyri writings, and research the history of Kabbalah back to the Sefer Yetzirot. You know, they aren't doing the work that makes them individually stand strong. And I think that, and I've stopped offering courses. I don't do that anymore. It's just not effective enough, you know. So what I offer now is encouragement. Go out and read, motherfucker. Click those links.
I wonder how you could like invigorate the occult community financially. I wonder if there's a way to do it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, so there are some very wealthy occultists. And when I say that, I'm talking about millionaires, billionaires,
Right.
all kinds of them out there. Um, Most of the occultists I know, you know, the difference between your average OTO member and a large pizza is?
What?
A large pizza can feed a family of 4.
No, I see what you did there. I see.
Yeah, I mean, most occultists are kind of fringy, lost people who are just trying to get by, and they aren't really.
It's that's true. Where I grew up in Virginia Beach, that's where the Edgar Cayce Foundation was, and which was a cool place to the cool little library to check out and stuff. But that had a very like hippy dippy flaky like community there though, and like so I know all about that.
Bunch of broke ass motherfuckers.
They are like none of them did anything. Like they just they just chilled. They just
Yeah,
chilled.
exactly. Yeah, and hung out.
And
But you know what?
talked.
If they're happy, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being broke and happy.
Right.
I don't condemn anybody for that, for sure. But I mean, how do you make it financially, I mean, I think Frank Red's model with Nephilim Press is the best way. You know, he makes really good quality books, and he splits the profits with the people that actually wrote them.
Right.
You know, he gives them a venue. He makes it possible for them to get their message out, and he splits the profits. He's honestly one of the best people I know. So I mean, it's like not not really. I mean, he's not the best person I know, but in terms of his business model, he's
Right.
fair. You know, and if people are fair about it, be fair. But the way to make money, uh, nobody believes me, but Jason Miller has made a shit ton of money doing this thing that he does, and he's really good at it. And there's nothing that anybody has paid for that was not valuable. You know, so I guess the trick would be, if we're going to make the occult profitable, would be to offer something valuable, something that changes people's lives and makes them feel better about themselves, you know. And
Right.
that's something he's been really good at over the years. um it I just wish that there were more magicians being produced. Jack Grail is an awesome teacher. He came and ate dinner with us a couple times, and he's just a really good dude. And he teaches the Hecate course on Blackthorn, I think it is. And he is just an amazing person. He's inspired. He's well educated. He knows his shit about all of the stuff. He pulled out a copy of I think my copy has been absconded with, um, uh, the Greek magical papyri, and like almost every page had uh, a little yellow sticky note on it that had notes on it that said what was being referenced so that he could find it faster. And
Right.
you know how the covers of books you use a lot start to look
Yeah.
like that, a little fringy at the edges. His was so bad. You know, he had just flipped through it so many times and read it so much that you could
Right.
tell that he was seriously into the Greek magical papyri, and every mention of Hecate in it, he had noted. And that's that's the fervor, you know, the passion that has to come across to make magicians. You know, people who take his class are just like astounded by what they learn. And Hecate is not my thing at all. I have tried like 3 times now to do Hecate, but it's just not my thing. So I mean, how do you make money in the occult world? I think it's teaching people. You know, I think classes are the way to go if you really want to exchange cash for time.
Right.
But I don't know how you make money in the music world.
Well, very carefully.
you
Very
don't.
carefully. You do it. You do it diversely. You have to, like, at least the way that I was able to make. I mean, of course, you can play music like performance and make money off of gigs and stuff, but the only way I've been able to do it is to like pair something with the physical copy of music. I just started a new label actually called Scribe and Bard Emporium, and it's going to be atmospheric, Dungeon and Dragony kind of role-playing game music. And they're going to be cassette tapes, and with the cassette tapes you'll have packages that'll have like a real book that'll come with it too, like a published book here that's been written originally or has been contracted with a writer. That's what I've got coming up now is this this chick out of Toronto who's a neo-pagan, and she wanted to do a release with me. So she has this album called The Forest My Temple, and I commissioned this book of spells essentially, and done with neo-pagan flavor, and then a spell kit right along with it. And that's the only way I've been able to do it with music.
Yeah, well, stock up on some cassette players too and sell those on the side, because who the fuck has cassette players anymore?
Oh no, it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing right now. There is a huge community of people who buy tapes now.
Are you serious?
Dead serious. Half of them don't even play the tape. They just buy a physical thing. They just want an artifact, like a relic.
Okay.
And
something magnetically sealed.
It's been the greatest thing for anyone who wants to try to make some money with music, because it's kind of like this agreement, of like, okay, if I really like you, I'm going to support you by buying this from you, and you'll get money for it, and I'll get something that's in my hand.
Yeah.
And so all I try to do is enhance it by adding more things to buy.
That was my model too. I just kept writing more ebooks. I'm like, yeah, I'll send you a PDF.
To be quite honest, I guess anything is just always business 101, whatever it is, it's always going to be the same principles.
Supply and demand, you got to find your audience and your purpose.
It's true.
Anyway.
Well, it's been an amazing talk with you.